Once again, EV obsession. Joe Boris, Zachary. It's not even Shahan. I've been saying Shahan for years. It's
No,
Shahan.
no, you're correct.
Shahan.
You're saying it correctly.
Shahan.
Yeah, Shahan.
We never say my name correctly, but it doesn't matter
Well,
because that's how it's
how do you
spelled.
pronounce your name correctly?
Oh, it's like super weird. It's like Bowers.
Bowers. Oh yeah.
If you say that to somebody, they'll type in Bowers. It'll be a totally different guy.
Oh yeah, I was thinking Boares,
Yeah,
Bowers.
doesn't
But
matter.
yeah, the original spelling was Shee, but the Irish pronounce that Shay. That's why when they arrived in Ellis Island, they made it Sha. But then everyone says Shahan because
Yeah,
Shahan, I mean, that's what everybody says. But
Shahan. I could see that.
that's what everybody assumes it
That's kind
says.
of
At
like
some
Middle
point in like
Easterny.
fourth
Like,
grade,
yeah.
I was like, maybe they're right, or like middle school. I was like, so maybe it is Shahan, and I'm the one saying it wrong.
Oh, I gave up around 10th grade.
Yeah.
I was like, forget it. We're done
All
here.
right.
A lot of this will come out in the editing. It'll be great.
So yeah, I mean, we have this is exclusive, so we'll start with this. I mean, it's not exclusive as far as we didn't get any
The
numbers
data
and
is not exclusive, but the
the chart.
presentation of it is exclusive.
We already saw the cumulative Model 3 and Model Y charts yesterday, so I didn't roll them into this like normal. This is the main one, the quarterly growth of Tesla, which is staggering, right?
It is. I mean, if you go all the way back, let's say over the last 10 years, which is kind of what we're looking at here, is 10 years of growth, right? You see just like a crazy growth curve. And there's some spikes and some ebbs and flows in there, but for the most part, it's doing the hockey stick and it seems to be going up. The question that everybody has, obviously, is whether or not it's sustainable. And then the other question I have, looking at this last quarter, am I hallucinating? Is that not down slightly from where it was?
Yeah, well, I'll get to that, but when I look at it, I often just think of all these different years and periods where, like, the prevailing narrative was Tesla's about to die, or a lot of people were convinced Tesla's dying now. This is the end. And 2019, first quarter of 2008 was a particular one because they had the big, finally Model 3 growth ramped, and you see these two charts at the end of 2018, and then because of tax credit changes, the first quarter of 2019 was a big drop, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the beginning of the end for a lot of critics and skeptics. And but then you see how they just drop here and there because of different reasons, but just the rise is staggering. It's amazing. I back here in 2018-19, I was confident, pretty confident it's going to keep growing. Like even in 2019, I started like how much will it grow,
Yeah.
but before 2019 for sure, I was like, well, it'll be hugely popular once it arrives. I just wondered about how much word of mouth would spread and how much that would spread sales. And it had a couple, well, it had the COVID dips, but then it just kept growing and growing. The drop last quarter was presumably because they had to retool the Shanghai Gigafactory for the Tesla Model 3 Highland. So production stopped for a bit. So then deliveries stopped. So that's the general assumption as to, I mean, that clearly affected production and deliveries. The question is whether are other issues with demand, which, leading to the price cuts and that kind of thing, and whether we see this as a blip on the rising chart, and it just keeps going up, up, up like it has been, or whether this is like a leveling off period time or something like that, where they can't cut prices much more, and demand is very strong. I mean, this is very strong sales, but whether there's an issue with the growth rate that they want.
I mean, there seems to be steady but slower growth for the Model 3. If you go a little bit lower to the Tesla vehicle sales quarterly deliveries, the Model 3 seems to be sort
Yeah,
of
the Model.
plateauing.
Yeah,
Model Y, I still think, is limited by production. I think if they could make 100,000 more, they'd probably deliver 100,000 more.
yeah, it's a question, but you do have that. Like I said, the narrative was around the Model 3 retooling. But if you look at the estimate, this is heavily influenced by Troy Teslike, who tracks production lines and everything,
Sure.
ships, all kinds of stuff. And the Model Y leveling off as well last quarter. So that's what I would look at as a little bit like, are they reaching a natural limit with these two models, or is it just a blip in the road? And yeah, you can also look at it. You can see it in this chart as well. Like, see how the Model Y bars get bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
and the Model 3 charts don't really. I think it's easier to see in the line graph, where the Model 3 is pretty steady for a few years, and the Model Y just kept rising. These are the official Tesla numbers for this graph.
Yeah, I think this is kind of indicative of all sedan sales versus crossover sales, though. I think that you see similar
Right.
kind of stuff where sedan sales are kind of humming along at whatever they are, crossover sales continue to grow. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? As automakers say, well, that's the growing segment. We want to be a part of that. They stop offering sedans, which just means that sedan sales go down even lower, et cetera, et cetera. But I
While
don't
you're
really know what
talking,
else to say here.
here's one more way to look at there's a Model 3 sales quarterly. This is not the same scale, obviously. It
Sure.
adjusts the scale to fit. So you see Model Y scales went way up.
Yeah, I think it's too soon to say that the Model Y sales are plateauing. I think S and X have plateaued. I think Model 3 has plateaued, but I think Model Y still has some life to
Oh,
it.
definitely a question mark. And I mean, that's just the big question, though. It's like, if it has, that's not a good sign for people who expect 50% a year CAGR. But there's also the argument the Cybertruck is next. That will boost the sales again. And then the Model C or
Yeah,
whatever
there
it
was
will
a
be.
commenter on yesterday's post that said the next 2 million vehicle EV, that's going to be the Cybertruck. And like,
Yeah, I think that
I
a lot of
just,
people think that the Cybertruck could be that, because the Ford F-150 is so popular, sells so many, and many see the Cybertruck as substantially better than the F-150. I think it's a case of, it's been around for a long time, even though it's not delivered,
it
and it's
feels
sort of,
old news
yeah, it
already.
feels like old news. So I felt like when it came out, oh, this could be really catch fire and be a disruptive vehicle too. At this point, I don't think it. I think people have had way too long to look at it and sit on it, and I think a lot of people will buy it. I don't think it's going to be comparable to the Model Y in its sales. And Elon expects 150,000 a year for it, so that by itself is a strong statement.
But that
Because
is a hype driven number by people, by a particular individual who tends to believe his own hype.
but
So
150,000 a year is not much. I mean, this is nothing.
150,000 a year
That's
for
nothing
something
compared to
that
the
looks
Model Y.
like that is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's Elon's estimate. So I
Yeah.
don't think it's particularly
Well, let's talk about this for a second.
safe to project like Model Y sales on it when even Elon doesn't expect that.
Yeah, but I want to talk about the Cybertruck for a second. If you want to pull this up, the
I don't have
people
a
who are
Cybertruck.
saying that this is going to be quote unquote better than a conventional body on frame internal combustion pickup truck, I have to imagine they have spent something less than zero amount of time working and living with a pickup truck. Like maybe they've seen a pickup in somebody else's driveway and assumed that they know about trucks because of this. But having an air ride suspension with, airbags on there and airbag suspension on a truck like this is not going to lead to the kind of longevity and, day-to-day abuse survival that I think a lot of people have come to expect from live axles and leaf springs. The inability to remove the bed and add on a utility body or a tow body or anything like that is going to limit its use from it's going to limit its practicality to fleet buyers and commercial buyers. The fact that it does not have a entire legacy operation and industry surrounding accessories like toolboxes, lights, things like that is going to make it less useful to hunters or fishers or people who just recreationally tow RVs or pull a boat once in a while, even if they're not pulling at a great distance. This is not a range conversation. This is just an accessibility conversation. You can't put a fifth wheel trailer or a gooseneck into that bed. You can't,
Yeah.
do a lot of things that people have come to use trucks for. So
Well,
what makes it better is
well,
not anything objective.
well, I think we should I should be more prepared for that conversation. But also I think we should have Jennifer Sensiba on. We have a 3-person discussion, just special segment on the Cybertruck pros and
Oh
cons. I
yeah,
think
you can get the abuse from both of us.
that would be really fun. Yeah, I could get Paul Foss, get a 4-person. We can fill these chairs finally. But oh, people don't see these chairs. It's weird because in Zoom we have this kind of a meeting room
Yeah.
display where we're in
You
two
should
of 4.
screen cap it and we'll put it as the headline video for the, or as the featured image for the written article.
I have to expand it, so I'll do that while I'm talking. But well, I was laughing because I think every American has to have seen pickup trucks in someone's in driveways. you can't be an American and not have seen pickup trucks in someone's driveway or all over the place. They're everywhere. So I just think that's also, I mean, like I said, I'd rather come back to it, but that's also one reason why I don't have a faith in the Cybertruck coming close to the Model Y, because there's such a cultural history around these pickup trucks. I'm not a part of that cultural history. I don't know. I mean, I have relatives who are in that cultural history, and I don't see them getting a Cybertruck. Like I don't think that any of them are going for a Cybertruck. So I think it will have a lot of buyers. It will pull from all different segments, but from the Model 3 owners, from SUV buyers, from pickup buyers, but I don't think it's going to be comparable to the Model Y. The Model
No,
C,
there's no way.
we'll have a special segment on the potential Model C. But let's move on to Ford. Oh, not
Woohoo!
Ford. Sorry,
This is Tesla's
another Tesla.
non-supercharger.
We have a couple Tesla charging stories here. So this is a brief one. Just Tesla's opened up non-Tesla supercharger pilot in New Zealand. So non-Teslas can charge at superchargers across New Zealand. Yeah, there's a statement from there's info from Tesla linked here. But just New Zealand, as we said, has got a very high EV adoption rate. So
Yeah.
it's a very advanced EV market. So it's not surprising that Tesla's doing some leading the charge, so to speak.
I like it.
But yeah,
So
that's
New
it.
Zealand,
Unless you
fun
have,
fact, there's more sheep than people in New Zealand. I
that's
don't
your
think
comment
that's
on this story,
related.
right?
That's my comment on this. I just, it's interesting, right? Because this is a legitimate news story because Tesla is using a lot of these markets that have a greater level of CCS dominance to try out this plan of expanding supercharger access to other vehicles. The plug and charge, how's it going to work? How's it going to play nice with other operating systems and CAN buses and battery architectures, right? So they're doing it in places that have a high percentage of EV adoption. They're doing it in places that are going to be very excited about this. And then eventually, I think once all the kinks are worked out, they'll bring it to China, they'll bring it to the US, they'll bring it to Korea, where there's a little more higher profile. I think if this goes totally sideways in New Zealand, it's a very safe thing to say, like, yeah, it's New Zealand. They have more sheep than people. We'll figure it out for the real countries later.
Yeah, but you can see it's quite easy to do there because they have the same CCS2 charging connector on Teslas as on other EVs.
Oh,
Because
sure, but there's a lot
that
more than the port at play here.
yeah, of course, but that makes it a simpler. You don't need an adapter.
Yeah.
You don't need to roll out an adapter
And
for your.
how did Nissan get this so wrong? They really stuck with that CHAdeMO thing till the bitter
Dude,
end.
we had an open letter signed by a bunch of people, some prominent people as well. It was like Nissan joined Tesla supercharging network. Didn't work. There's a much more interesting Tesla charging story. There's no mention of Tesla in either press release from Pulse or from Wiferion. Pulse acquired Wiferion, but if you remember back a few months ago, Tesla just acquired Wiferion earlier this year.
And now they're selling it.
Why is it not? Why did it sell a Wiferion?
Yeah, I mean, relatively quickly too, right? And this is according to the Rob report. Pulse has acquired it, and it's really kind of questionable what happened here. It's not Obviously Tesla bought it for an undisclosed amount. There's questions here whether it was a quick profitability play, but it's not entirely clear what was purchased and not entirely clear what was sold. So
No, nothing is clear.
no, it's very opaque.
Which is good content for YouTube because we can speculate.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. I think that there was a misrepresentation of the actual IP that Tesla was buying from Wiferion. I would not be totally shocked if there was not a lot of technology that was being licensed from some third-party IP kind of things that were like, maybe Witricity, maybe something that Wave is doing, kind of those companies. And I think
it's
that
possible
one of two things happened. Either it was purchased, they realized that the IP needed to make this successful was not really theirs, and then decided to unload it before anybody else figured that out, or they bought it, kept the patents and IPs and licenses that they thought were valuable, and sold the rest of it, which I think is also likely.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what I was thinking as well. But I was just going to say it's possible that Elon saw something and said, "Hey, go buy this company," but told them to buy the wrong company.
That is hilarious. But
no,
surely
not,
a man, listen,
that's not what happened. But
listen, surely a man who spent $44 billion, it would not react quite this impulsively.
No. More seriously, I was having the same question. Like, did they keep any of the patents? Did they keep any of the technology? Like, is there any manufacturing process they kept, or did they look at it more closely once they had it in house and they were like, actually, we're going to go a different route?
Well, that's the Rivian story, right? Whenever an actual car company gets a good look at what Rivian is doing, they run for the hills, man. Ford invested a whole bunch of money and they were going to have Rivian build them a Lincoln SUV, and then signed the deal, got their money. They got finally the peek behind the curtain and then immediately canceled that deal. Mercedes-Benz did the same thing. I wrote an article earlier this year about how Mercedes had entered into a joint venture with Rivian to build an electric delivery van. That lasted about 87 days. And then Mercedes said, yeah, no thanks. Amazon was going to exclusively buy electric vans from them. And now they have another deal going with Stellantis and
what
Ford.
Is the deal there? Like, is it just that they have no manufacturing chops? Is it like they have a horrible manufacturing? What is the actual, what's the problem there?
So,
I mean, I know these announcements are strange. It's like this Wiferion one. Like, what happened?
Not strange. I think I'm going to say something positive about Elon Musk, which I am not generally known for. Elon has charisma, and he has the ability, proven over and over and over again, to will solutions to problems into existence.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you were talking about, them being surprised with Rivian's manufacturing when they get, and I was like, well, that's what Elon did. He got in there and he made that crap happen. He made it.
He did work. And I think,
and people probably have an overestimate of what's possible from an automotive startup.
Yeah, and I think RJ, who is very capable and very intelligent and a very good, and I say this with love, he's a very good huckster and a decent engineer. He's got a lot of the on paper sort of qualifications that you would expect someone like an Elon Musk to have, but he's not Elon.
No, I mean, yeah, there's no doubt about it.
He is the Edsel Ford of Elon Musk's.
There's no doubt about it that he's achieved stuff in automotive startup world and in scaling automotive production that is nearly impossible to achieve. So I don't know. I'm just curious.
He achieved it off the back of what Elon did. He achieved what he achieved largely because investors were willing to take a risk on Rivian because they had missed out on Tesla.
Yeah, and they thought, oh, if Elon could do it, someone else could, and not
someone else can. Probably not RJ.
And I mean, the degree to which Tesla grew and scaled, it's not going to be repeated. Like it was a moment in time. It was a certain group of people. It was Elon, JB Straubel, a bunch of people working day and night, like all hours to
Yeah,
make it
Martin
happen.
Eberhard, those guys that
Oh, tons of like
had the
thousands,
idea to go,
yeah,
the lithium ion route.
thousands of
There's
people whose names you don't know as well. Like it was a whole different. But yeah, getting back to Wiferion, I don't know. I mean, I'm curious. There's the speculation maybe they just ended up keeping some talented people. It was like, okay, we'll buy the company and get their best people. That's a common practice, quite a common practice. But
remember
I,
when Joe Boris and Steve Hanley wrote for Gas 2?
yeah, yeah, I, I think. I don't know. I mean, just my hunch, which is obviously not well informed, is
Eh,
Tesla got it in house and decided, hey, this is not going to work or scale
yeah.
the way we hoped. But if we forget Tesla, look at the announcement. Pulse and Wiferion are both very excited. There's a statement here somewhere. They want to make this like the global standard.
I'm sure they do. I would love it.
Well,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
anyway,
I mean,
I think
I'm
we've
sure
talked about it
Lego
enough.
wants to make Lego connectors the global standard. I don't think that really
Who
tells
does?
us anything.
Yeah,
Everyone who's running a business in a capitalist society wants to become the global standard.
yeah. Well, I think Lego is the global standard.
That's probably fair. Moving on. Nobody
Okay, fine.
cares
We
about
move
this
on.
weird scam charging
Oh
company,
yeah.
tax dodge, money laundering thing.
I mean, it's just the basic stuff. Yeah, nothing mind blowing. So here's the
Well,
Mazda
yeah, the CX-30.
CX-30. Oh, there's a typo there. So
Is it the CX-30 or the MX-30? I always forget.
the CX-30, but the image description says MX-30.
Oh, geez, come on. This is
But
the problem with these alphanumeric.
oh my gosh, the
No, it is
horrible.
an MX-30. It is an
Like why?
MX-30.
So that is the MX-30, but the story is about the CX-30. So that makes more sense.
It just gets worse and worse. How is the story about a CX-30?
So the situation is Colombia, has a few EVs,
Right.
and it's apparently got a history with Mazda. They had a local manufacturing facility there, and like it's just like a legend. Mazda's like a legend there. And they
Sure.
had like everyone had the Mazda 323 and Mazda 626. They were produced there. I don't know if you know those vehicles. I do not.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I was waiting for you to like, oh yeah, give me a long rundown of
Oh,
these.
I didn't know that was what we wanted.
No, we
No,
don't
the
have to. But
323,
but
the
the point is
MX6,
that they
those are
produced them.
626, great cars. Those were widely considered to be some of Mazda's best cars. Some of the certainly the 323, which became the 3 and or the Protege and things like that. Those were some of the best cars you could get in the 80s and 90s. There was an all-wheel drive turbocharged homologation special of the 323 GTX that actually a roommate of mine had one in West Palm Beach, and we absolutely thrashed the snot out of it. So if you heard that or at 2 a.m, looked outside, saw like a blue-gray little hatchback, sorry about that. I was young and stupid, and that thing could go 140 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think anyone bothered by that a couple decades ago is probably dead now. But
ouch.
we
I'm so
or
old.
not. But no, the point is, okay, at the time that these were great vehicles, they were also produced locally in Colombia. Everyone in Colombia had these in the 80s, 90s, and knots. And so Mazda has a really good brand there. So they brought the CX-30 electric to the market, and it started off selling all right because of that Mazda legacy. But the problem is it's got 220 kilometers or 137 miles of range, which is not a lot in this day and age. And it was competing against models with the Chevy Bolt, just slightly more expensive, but had like double the range. And the BYD Yuan Plus was cheaper than the CX-30 electric and had about double the range. So it didn't really have a place to stand in its market, which is the same as it is in every market. And Juan makes a really good point. Like this is seen as a compliance vehicle that's just built for markets where you have to sell an electric vehicle. And so it was surprising the first place that it was brought to Colombia. It's like, well, what are they doing bringing a compliance car to Colombia? But it's because that legacy history of perhaps.
Well, that was it. Like you had to give it somewhere to sell it that somebody would care, right? And that might
Yeah.
be plenty of range for them. But I just want to just emphasize that it is the MX-30. There is no CX-30 electric.
Yes, that's right. So he's got the typo. Maybe
He's got the typo, right?
okay, we'll fix that
Yeah,
this here.
that's the
But I
MX.
don't know why he thought it was called the CX-30. Maybe there's so the last point here is that just recently, well, their sales started off okay and then dwindled to zero in September. And just recently they're offering a 25% discount on the CX-30, bring
Wow.
it down to $35,000, undercutting the price of the Dongfeng Series S, the Jack E40X, and everything else. So he's like, is this like a long-term price war Mazda has started, or is it just trying to unload inventory that it couldn't unload at a higher price, and then it'll go back to ridiculous range further
It's
down?
just trying to unload inventory. I mean, the reality is that, so I had one of these as a test car, I believe last year or earlier this year, and I really liked it. Even with the short range, it had plenty of range for my purposes, driving around town, driving around Chicago. I didn't particularly care for the small battery, but it did make it so that I could charge the thing up relatively quickly, right? I could, find a level 4 charger, whatever it was in ChargeWay speak, plug it in, go get a coffee, and have plenty of range back. And it had really good driving dynamics. It was fun on the inside. It had really nice use of materials, really excellent build quality. The paint, like all Mazda paint, was really some of the best in the business. And I really liked this car, and I couldn't buy one. And not that I was totally serious about buying one, but I ended up with the Ioniq, and this would have been my first choice, and I literally could not get one.
And you were like
So,
one of the only people who could actually have it because you don't drive.
well, right.
So you
And
don't need more than 100 miles of range.
well, it's exactly right. It would have been a fun little car for me to have. It would have gotten me around town and done what I needed it to do. But I couldn't get one. So I don't really understand what Mazda was doing here. I think this could have been really a smart intellectual successor to the BMW i3. It needed a little bit of a range extender, like a little 250 or 500cc motor under the hood. It had plenty of room for it. I just don't know why it never happened. Actually, I do know why it never happened. Mazda has been playing with this idea of bringing back the Wankel rotary for years, right? And like,
we're gonna go down this road.
we are, and they had promised that they were going to do the Wankel rotary as a range extender, and then at the end of it, it was too expensive. They couldn't get it to pass emissions. So what did they do? Well, they had already designed the car, the MX-30, that it was going to go in. They had already designed the battery. They'd already designed the electric motor. They'd already built it, and this is it. So what they did was they just said, screw it. We're going to do a compliance car. We're not going to include the gas motor, and go Godspeed Spider-Man. And that's what they did. And now they have no EVs. They haven't really presented any case for electrification in the near future. I don't really know what they're going to do. And the last new product report that I heard out of Mazda from the dealer meeting, and I'm not supposed to disclose what I may or may not have seen, but I can tell you what I have heard because it's been in other outlets, that they're coming back with a rear wheel drive inline 6-cylinder powered version of the Mazda 6. And it just blows my mind. I understand that the nearest EV mandate is in California and it's 12 years away, and Mazda has to find a way to stay relevant between now and 2035, but they really don't seem to be taking electrification seriously at all.
Yeah, that's a great rundown of it. I think, yeah, I forgot until you brought it up that this was supposed to be probably supposed to be a range extended EV with that Wankel engine. So
Wankle.
I just like, why couldn't they stick something else in there? I mean, because of how it was designed, or because they're just like, okay, this doesn't work, let's just put out a full electric so we say we have a full electric. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, when you look at it, you're like, oh wow, yeah, that could be really appealing to anyone who has a positive association with Mazda. Like, look at that car. That's a nice looking vehicle. And you could see why it started selling well in Colombia at first. Or like, and then people were like, oh no, don't buy that car. You can only drive 100 miles on it. And I mean, it's fine if you only drive, like a typical like 30 to 40 miles a day
Yeah.
and charge at home every day, and you never go on long trips.
Which I
But
think is most people in South America.
yeah, and I mean, maybe at a lower price it'll start selling and it'll find its home. But yeah, that's just an interesting story. It would be great if it stayed at a low price and they're just like, let's just unload all of our Mazda MX-30 electrics to Colombia. All these extra inventory, all these extra vehicles they probably haven't produced many, but you know what I'm saying. It would be fun if they kept the price low and there was more of a kind of electric car price war going on down there. Would help get the volume up. But that's it for Mazda. Next, we have a couple electric boat stories.
Yeah. So do you want to start with the Porsche one or the
Either
Blue
way,
Innovation Group?
let's start with this one, I guess, since it's
Yeah, this is interesting. It's a day cruiser concept. I have not yet seen the actual boat. I've just seen renderings, but very similar to what we've
there
seen
is
from
no
X
boat.
Shore. There is no boat. There's only Zool. What I like about this one is it does have, kind of this idea of like a day cabin where you can get out of the sun a little bit. It's
Yeah.
got the fold down rear, rear deck that you would see on like the X Shore boats and other electric boats that kind of show off the kind of flexibility that you get when you don't have a big outboard motor hanging off the back of the thing. And, I think these are going to be successful, especially as a lake cruiser. When, if your idea of going out and having a nice day on the boat is getting out on the lake with your family, just jumping off, swimming in the water a little bit, getting some sun, getting some drinks, then this is going to be a great boat for you in the same way that these other ones are. I don't really, I don't really see a ton of market for this. I like this a lot better than some of the other things I've seen. I like the solar roof. I think that's great. If you can power the auxiliary stuff, you don't need to have an onboard diesel generator or a CNG generator for that. I think that's a great idea.
You can
Electric
extend
cooktop,
it.
obviously.
You can see there where it extends out to be a bigger array.
Man, I got to tell you, I'm staring at that, and all I can think of is, well, that's going to break.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I'm like, well, some of it's still shaded. Why isn't it collecting solar electricity all the time? I don't. But it's
I mean, well,
to
you
keep
want to
the because you.
retract it because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want sun and you
yeah.
want to be outside, and it's going to obstruct your view a little bit if you're, if you're in the pilot house there. But
When you're in boat driving mode, you want it tucked in to.
yeah, and you'll close this up. What I like about this and what I'm curious about is, will that solar panel charge the main battery, or is it just an auxiliary power system? Because if it'll charge the main battery and you're not in a hurry, you kind of have like perpetual range on this thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's not a big solar system, of course, 2.8 kilowatts. The battery pack also is not big. It's a lithium iron phosphate 221 kilowatt hour battery, 100
That's a
nautical
lot of battery, dude. I mean, that's
100.
not big. That's
Well,
huge.
yeah, but you could power a boat, so 100 nautical miles of range. So yeah, I mean, I look, I'm not a boat person. I live in Florida. I love the water. If I was gonna buy a boat, like this would be a very appealing boat to me. I just love the look of it. It's got this very nice interior seating area, this nice fold out exterior seating area, the solar panels, you can see the Tesla like tablet there. Of course, that's not hidden. It's behind the glass, but it's clearly visible to show people, hey, it's like your Tesla. And I think it looks really good. But yeah, it's $300,000, which is
That's not
300
bad for
about,
something like this. I think it's
about
a little
300,000 more than I
pricey.
have. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little pricey for what you're getting. I think, a internal combustion outboard powered boat similar to this would
oh no.
probably be 100 grand less, if not a little bit, maybe more than that. But
Yeah.
honestly, this is cool if you're, if you're limited by noise regulations, or, if you're limited in where you can go. So let's talk about this for a second, because the main drive and the reason you're starting to see all of these companies produce boats like this is that there are a number of lakes and rivers, primarily overseas and in Canada, that are banning recreational internal combustion boats.
Oh,
They're
I
doing
think,
that for a lot of reasons, right? You don't want oil and grease and gasoline and diesel fuel leaking into the water and damaging wildlife. So 100% support this, and I get behind this. But we don't yet have a lot of those bans in the United States. So this is a market that will come once you have that kind of legislation and protective legislation in place. The problem is, especially in North America, environmentalism, pollution, things of that nature have been made into hyper politicized topics to the point where doing damage to the earth is seen as something that you can pound your chest about and makes you like a big man and makes you Mr. Cool Guy at your local Republican conference. And somebody who's got $300,000 to buy a toy in the United States is very probably voting for these idiots.
yeah,
So
well, that,
I just hate
yesterday I mentioned this county commission meeting where they said some crazy stuff, and the meeting was about that they were rolling back wetlands protections in Florida. Like,
Yeah.
we have enough crazy environmental problems here. Rolling back wetlands protections is just going to amplify them. We can't even get home insurance. Home insurance going up rapidly, and some people can't even get it. Flood insurance.
Yep.
I should, because of the problems we have. And so the problem was that they're rolling back wetlands regulations, and this county commissioner goes on this wild and crazy rant. I gave someone, a commenter asked for it in the comments yesterday of our video, so I dropped the link in there, so you can watch it from there. But it's the crazy kind of thing that, yeah, good luck getting any regulations like that in Florida. But I think there's two things. I mean, one is for people who have electric cars, who care about climate change, who want a boat, they want an electric boat. Like, and honestly, when I look at, like, this is the boat I would buy if I was getting a boat, because it's just the perfect mix of what you get and the costs and everything. And I don't need more than what it offers. I would want what it offers. And of course, a giant yacht would be great if I was a billionaire, but then I'd feel very guilty. But I
I'd
just
get
think
over that real quick.
it's a great combo. and like, it's the perfect, like, honestly, if I was, like, it makes me think maybe I could get a boat, you know. I find it really appealing, so I love it. Yeah, but as you said, if in places where they mandate these kind of things, that's where you'll get a real market made, where this company could really thrive and survive and sell a lot of these. So let's hope that happens, and Blue Innovation Group does well with this. But yeah, let's move on to another slightly different electric boat.
Well, this is a different animal altogether now, isn't it? Because this is, first of all, this is done in coordination with Porsche. This is a really, really fast, ultra high torque electric outboard. This is going to be a yacht tender. This is going to be a boat that you park inside of your other boat. And just like the Tesla early on with the Model S established itself as a genuine performance car, as a 0 to 60 quarter-mile champion, this little electric tender is going to absolutely knock your socks off. This is going to be a fast, fun little sporty boat that is quiet, that is going to meet those zero ice regulations. And again, you don't need this thing to have range, because you're just going to park it in your real boat anyway.
Oh, it won't let me expand this with the screen share, but you can.
Yeah, it's just,
Oh, here we
it's
go. There it is.
you unplug
Here's
it.
a video. Oh, look at it. Nice.
Yeah,
button.
super go fast. You're black. I love this idea, because there's lakes that have noise regulations, right? Especially like even in Florida. My cousin has a house outside of Orlando that's right on a lake. And like, I would inevitably be that jerk that would go out on the wave runner or the jet ski at like 6 a.m. in the early dawn before anybody else was on the lake and just tear ass all over the water. But you couldn't do that anymore, because now they have noise regulations, which is why when Taiga came out with their electric Orca, I got all excited. This is the same kind of thing. You could just blast this thing across a lake. You're not going to wake anybody up. You're not going to be antisocial. You're going to have a great time. And then, pull it back in and plug it back in, and then you're good to go.
That's like the whole video, it blasting itself across the lake. And also featuring the Porsche electric bike and the Porsche Taycan. Well, there's the Taycan Turismo, and you'll see it later in the video.
I
Oh, we
got
got
so
some
excited at
lightning.
that. I saw one of those. I think I told you about this. I saw one of
Yes,
those
you did.
with the Porsche
Yeah.
bikes on the roof, and I
Oh,
was just
yes.
like, "This guy's living the Porsche dream here."
Yeah. Yeah, that was the ending of a video that I ended up cutting because of all kinds of other nonsense that I included there. So I was like, oh, too bad Joe's story got cut because of my nonsense. But
It
yeah,
happens.
it's a very exciting looking boat. I mean, look, there's the Porsche electric bike. Here's, clearly it's selling a lifestyle. You can do
It's
off-road.
selling a lifestyle, and I think this is the whole idea, right? Like if you have a Porsche, if you have the
This is
Porsche e-bike, you have the Porsche car, you have the lake house. Yeah, why wouldn't you have one of these?
this is why you work so hard coding 12 hours a day so that you can so
Yeah,
you
this
can
is
use that software engineering money to go boat on the lake with your beautiful girlfriend or wife and
yeah,
electric bike in the
or boyfriend or husband. We don't know. Maybe it's her boat.
whatever. Oh yes, sorry, my bad. It's
Yeah,
true.
what the heck?
Well,
Trust me,
this
if,
is
if I had this boat, it would be because Margaret bought it for me.
this is very cool looking.
I do like that. So, for those of you who don't really understand what you're looking at, those 5 gauges across the top, those little nacelles, that is like almost a direct copy of the original Porsche 356 and 901 version 911 dashboard. So like you have that Porsche heritage. The steering wheel looks very much like what you'd get out of a Cayman or a Boxster. So this is speaking Porsche to people who speak Porsche, right? They're looking at this and they understand what they're looking at, and it's very cool. Then you've got the screen on the other side, on the passenger side. Again, this is very Porsche, that there's a lot of stuff for you to look at, but maybe the passenger or co-pilot can look at that. We're focused on the driving. We've got the important gauges front and center. The throttle is right there. It's all machined aluminum. This is very Porsche 356, maybe 550-ish spidery. This is exactly what someone who is a Porsche file, who wants to get a Porsche on the water, is going to look for, and they've got it here. And I think the designers did a really excellent job of this, not only in tying in the automotive history of the company, but also tying in that like Porsche design that you see in like Porsche sunglasses, Porsche coffee makers, Porsche pens, that all of that is really present in this boat. And yeah, it's
the
nice.
wood,
If you have a 50-foot Ferretti or something, you can put this on there.
the wood deck looks really nice. You can see there you've got
Yeah.
dock mode, you've got range mode, so you can extend your range by driving, boating more efficiently. You've got sport mode and sport plus mode, so a lot of fun there. Here it is with the Taycan. It's just
How much is that? That's probably 300 grand.
this is $500,000.
Yeah, it is. See, and you don't even get a
That's
solar roof or a living room.
no, that's what we're saying, right? Oh
You
my,
have to
even the
poop off the
battery
side
has
like an animal.
Porsche branding on it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
yeah,
hot boat.
that is a boat I will not get. No, it's 562,000 euros,
Yeah.
over $500,000 for this
But that
nice.
sounds right to me.
Yeah,
Like
no, it
that
does.
looks
I
like a
mean,
$500,000 boat, whereas the other thing looks kind of like a Bayliner that they're asking
more
premium money
the other
for because
thing
they
is
say
more
the word
for someone
Tesla.
like me.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, that's like $100,000 boat that they're charging a 3x premium on
Well,
because
yeah,
it's electric.
it's not even for me. So that's the truth. But
Yeah,
this
this
is
thing looks the part.
I'm just trying to find here. So it's got well, it can do a 250 kilowatt charging, fast charging. That's convenient.
Yeah.
11
I'm
kilowatts
I'm
supercharging.
looking at that as like a competitor to like a Crispcraft or maybe like a Riva or something like that. Something really,
So
really nice.
it's got 100 kilowatt hour battery. So it's less than this one. This one was
Oh yeah, but it's a much smaller animal. It's a totally different.
221 kilowatt hours. This one is 100 kilowatt hours. It's what, basically the same battery that comes in the, yeah, 400 kilowatt peak power. So
Yeah,
yeah, well
you
that's
need
it. I
look
mean,
up.
I'm just drooling over it at this point, but I honestly it's not my, yeah, I don't know much about boats. It's not my thing. But it's very it's just a perfect new Porsche product, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
So
I like this.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you're looking at a Riva, you're looking at something like that. This is perfect. This is a modern version of like what the Chris Crafts and the Rivas were. So I like it, and I think the price is right. Honestly, the other boats that are in this class are going to be about the same price, maybe a little less. They might be 450,
Oh,
500,000.
I like
But
the
yeah,
night view.
this is the right. Yeah, this
This
is the right
this is the
one.
life, right? This is the life. This is what you see in a
This is
Ocean's
what you
11 movie.
have. Right. This is why you have slave children working in the mines for you to generate. This is what you really want. This is when you're exploiting your workers at maximum efficiency and you're getting the highest margins in the industry because you've completely cut out the middleman. This is what you buy yourself.
Oh my. That's one way to look at it. So we have a few more stories which we pushed. Oh look, they're advertising me a Volvo C40 Recharge up there.
As they
Volvo.
should. That's going to be your next car. You're going to
They're
go
like, hey,
drive it
we've
and be
heard
like,
you
Joe's
talking to
right. These are
we've,
nice.
we've heard you talking to Joe Boris.
Oh yeah, don't even say that. Walk into
Okay.
Volvo Oak Park, buy it from them. They'll
This
know.
this is fun. This is interesting. I mean, it's on a like a Cybertruck like vehicle.
So this is interesting, right? So these Danner guys, we talked to them a little bit earlier in this year, and then I went out to meet them in Irvine, California, earlier this year. And what's funny about this is a platform. It's a mobile platform that you can put modular little pods in it. So like you can put a cherry picker on it, you can put a little, a little like excavator arm on it, a couple of different things. You can put batteries on it. So the idea is that you can have modular sort of use of this thing and put it to use in different ways. And what you can't see from that picture, and what I never got from any of the ad materials, is just how flipping big this thing is. Like, that is a full stand up height cab up there. So this
Like
thing is
what you
like at
see like in
least,
a crane.
yeah, this thing is huge, and it makes it look like, oh, what a fun little golf
Yeah,
cart
that's
like
cute.
vehicle. Yeah, that's cute. But like, look at the cars just to the right of
Yeah.
it and how
Yeah, that's what I
small
did.
they are compared to this thing. This is a big, big device, and
Look,
the
it's bigger
ability.
than the Capitol.
I'm out.
What
Truckzilla.
what is wrong with my statement, Joe? It is
It
bigger. You
is
can
larger
measure
than
it
the
with your
Capitol. That's
fingers,
right.
with your hand here. Well, anyway,
I have
but
to do one of those little prayers, where it says like, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I
no, but
cannot
I
change.
honestly I didn't realize it was big until you said that.
Yeah, no, it's
Because it
big.
looks like a small thing you put, yeah, that would fit in the back of a pickup truck. But yeah, when you mention it, I immediately looked over at the cars. I'm like, oh yeah, look at that. It is big.
So
And
big.
yeah, I don't know what it's, I've never been in a crane thing, but it looks, yeah.
Yeah, you
So
can
this,
stand up in there.
yeah, I didn't realize that. But then when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, you would be able to, right?
Yep.
So yeah, and they're using i3 batteries, is that right? Or
Um, I don't
BMW batteries?
think, yeah. So like, because they're getting those second life batteries in that still have a great use as energy storage and energy management systems, and
Oh,
they
so they
can,
they started working with BMW in 2015 on
yeah,
using
they've
those
been
batteries.
around. So these guys are really, really sharp. And let me see if I can pull up who our contact is over there.
So yeah, they started working with them in 2015 using i3 EV batteries. Now in 2017, they announced the new mobile power station. There's not that many i3s to pull batteries from,
But
but
they don't need that many.
yeah, that's true.
They
So
don't
that was in
need that many. That's the
2017. This
interesting
is
thing.
6 years later,
Yeah.
but it seems like it is still using the i3 batteries. It's very, yeah, very interesting. But what is this vehicle it's on? Like this is part of the whole thing?
Yeah,
This seems
it's
like
like
a
a
lot.
platform. It's like a platform. So if you look at this thing, the actual vehicle is just like this front sort of pickup bed, a rear pickup bed, and this big vertical kind of cylindroid oval thing in the middle. And you can attach different modules to the front and rear. So you could attach battery
Mm.
modules to the back, and then this kind of pilot house thing in the front to drive it around. And then you can plug in vehicles that are EVs that are charging think of like an EVTOL where you can't necessarily bring it to a charger. You need to take a charger to it. This would
The
be the
vertical
thing.
takeoff and landing aircraft.
Yeah, like a big drone or something, or an electric airplane. You can't necessarily bring the electric airplane to a charging station. You take the charging station to it. So you've got, a couple hundred kilowatt hours of energy stored in these batteries. You park it up there, you plug it in, you go, it goes back into the hub, the battery gets taken off, a new battery goes on, and it goes and does its thing. You can't think of it in terms of electric vehicles like, it's not going to go around charging people's Teslas. It might, but
yeah, it just looks expensive for like extra charging.
yeah, but it makes a ton of sense for environments where
And
infrastructure is not really there, but needed.
is it particularly for like construction sites where there's more and more we had an electric excavator show.
Yeah, electric wheel loaders, electric compactors. We have there's a new electric vacuum extractor that I think is really interesting.
Definitely
This
cool
is a
looking.
great use for that, where you could drive it out because it's got this sturdy sort of truck frame. You could drive it out there and plug those vehicles in. And then once it's done, this thing can go back to the charger that's already built out, Electrify America, whatever, plug in and rejuice up its batteries.
And it looks like the long lost cousin of the Tesla Cybertruck. And I can't tell if it's like the black sheep in the family or if it's like the more practical, linear, straightforward, business approach member of the family. And the Cybertruck is the black sheep.
I mean, the Cybertruck doesn't really exist yet. We did that article the other day, and I was really surprised about the guy that auctioned off he bought at an auction a low VIN Cybertruck, but he didn't buy the Cybertruck. He bought the build slot.
Oh, really?
And I thought,
I thought he actually bought the Cybertruck.
Well, there are no Cybertrucks to buy yet.
Yeah, I thought there were a few. I thought that's what the point was. But
yeah, it seemed the second time I read through it that it was just the build slot. So
that's interesting. Also, like what surprised me was that it was only $400,000 because like all the hype around this vehicle, all the money in Silicon Valley, I thought it would sell for more, although
I mean, again, you're talking about a platform, right? So it's $400,000, and then you have to upfit it for your purposes.
It also depends on what VIN number it was. Like low VIN, like 100, like 13.
Oh, I thought you meant the Denar.
No, I'm talking about the Cybertruck being auctioned for just 400,000. Like that seemed pretty low to me for something that's supposed to be like a very exclusive.
That seems low to you? That's so crazy. That seems
just
high to me.
With all the hype around it and all the money in Silicon Valley, you'd think, oh, this is going to get really high.
Yeah, but 10x, dude, 10x is high. So it's supposed to be a $40,000 truck. I know we've sort of come down from that cloud, but
this would be like $100,000 version, so like 4x.
Even 4x might be about right. Okay, I'll give you that.
But I mean, I guess the point is, look, there's going to be. I mean, how much is it really? If it's not Elon's Cybertruck, like how much is the value really gonna go? It's not worth it. Well, let's move on. So this is an interesting story. VinFast unveiling its latest EVs at the Geneva International Motor Show in Qatar. And I was editing this article and I was like, what is going on here? What is the Geneva Motor Show is not in Qatar? But it was the first time in history that the Geneva Motor Show was held somewhere other than Geneva or Switzerland, and it happened to be Doha, Qatar, which I just found that a little bit wild. Like
there is something. So this happened a couple of years ago when SEMA did a show in the UAE, and there's this. We've talked about this in the past very briefly, that the Middle Eastern governments understand that the world is moving away from oil and they want to maintain their prominence, right? And they're doing that by trying to build up their own industries and their own economies. And they're also doing that by bringing known brands and known entities to the area. So they did it with SEMA a couple of years ago, which is the specialty equipment show. They do a lot of race cars, parts, exotic vehicles. They did that a few years ago. And now they're doing this, which is people know the Geneva Auto Show, right?
Yeah.
But they're bringing this now. So now the Geneva Auto Show is in the Middle East, and they've thrown a bunch of money at the show organizers in the city, I'm sure, for the name and all of this other stuff. And it's really interesting. And to see VinFast there is also interesting because VinFast is, Vietnam is trying to do the same thing. They're trying to become a more globally prominent manufacturing industrial center. And for VinFast to put out new models at Geneva, but not Geneva, there's so much weird, surrealist, reverse cultural appropriation stuff here. I really don't even want to get started.
No, exactly. And I was like, we have to talk about this, but I don't know what to say about it. It's just like it's like a Buddhist koan. It just like wipes my mind blank.
No,
it's
it's
just
just
there's too much
it's
contradicting, confusing stuff going on, and stuff that we know is going on with the EV revolution.
yeah,
But
there's so much weirdness in this.
so I have two questions. One, if I understand it, the Geneva Motor Show is the auto show with like the most premium cars, right? Historically,
Correct. So
like
Geneva is historically neutral territory. So you will get like the new Ferraris, the new Mercedes Benz, the new Aston Martins, the new Rolls Royce would probably bow at Geneva or something
the
like that.
most wildly expensive cars go to the Geneva Motor Show, not
Exactly right.
not the Detroit Auto Show.
Right. But just like every other auto show, it has been declining in popularity,
Uh,
except in the Middle East, where anything European, anything Western is still considered a premium thing.
and
So,
premium autos are a big deal.
exactly. So, culturally, the Geneva Auto Show has a lot more relevance to people in the Middle East than it does anymore to the West,
That's
who,
interesting.
like I'm not going to fly to Geneva to see a reveal of a new car that I will get an email about in 20 minutes after it's revealed, if
Uh,
not the day or two before, so that I can have my article ready to go.
yeah, I remember. Yeah, well, I remember a prominent person in the UAE, the owner developer behind the Sustainable Cities development, very big development in Dubai, on the edge of Dubai, I think. He bought a modified Tesla Model X, like at the Geneva Motor Show, just like it's like, oh, that's what I want. It was widened, the wheels were widened, and it
Yeah.
was like the whole thing was wide. And it was like, oh, that's what I want. I'll buy it right now.
Yeah.
So
And
you're
that's how
actually
those shows
very
are.
rich people actually go there and just shop for very expensive, nice cars in person.
That's right.
But
That's
for a
right.
normal person, not so much. But yeah, so so my other question is, like, where does it, I mean, I guess it's its own thing, but where does it sort of rank in the realm of auto shows? Because you have
Number
the
one.
Detroit, what's that?
Number one. Absolute number one global show.
Okay. So yeah, so it's a big deal that it's in Doha. It's a big deal that VinFast has a big thing there. I think it's fascinating.
I
The
think the real big deal about this, and I'll just throw this out here, and I think this speaks to some of the thinly veiled nationalism and racism that comes out of the EU sometimes. I think it's interesting that there were not big reveals from auto manufacturers that historically have big reveals at Geneva. They did not have some kind of major giant announcement for the show and cutter.
well,
The
yeah.
possible exception to that could be Aston Martin saying that they were going to have a Le Mans program, but honestly, that's not huge news from them. It's a car that we've already seen. It's ambitious, but I don't know that it's big news. So I think that this is
Yeah, normally we get a lot of press
yeah, this
releases
was a
about,
snub. I think the auto manufacturers snubbed this show.
well, we just had one left, which is
Yeah,
this is
let's
a
do
week
this
old,
one.
but LG Energy Solution and Toyota signed a long-term battery supply agreement to power electric vehicles in the US. I think we covered this on the site a week ago, but
Yeah, I mean it's LG is expanding its presence in the US, and which is good that they picked up Toyota, because my understanding is that GM is going away from LG Chem batteries. So for Toyota to be doing this and building a true JV here, it's going to be interesting. I am curious to know if this is real, because I think the battery chemistry in Toyota's EVs has been very famously different from the battery chemistry in other vehicles. They seem to be kind of really doubling down on being somewhat different in this respect. And yeah, we'll see how
Yeah.
that plays out for them.
Yeah, well, there's a few big numbers from so it's a 20 gigawatt hour factory by 2025. So just in 2 years, should be a battery factory. Where are those batteries going? Like you might ask, like, what is Toyota going to put those batteries in when it's barely selling EVs at the moment?
Right.
Well, it plans to have 30 BEV models sold globally under the Toyota and Lexus brands by 2030. Plans to sell up to 3.5 million BEVs annually by then. So it is finally getting into the game. It's no longer hyping up hydrogen as much and trying to trick us into believing BEVs have no future. And it's a $3 billion factory. So I hope it's real, because $3 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah, 3 billion is a lot of money. And I think, it'll be interesting with the IRA subsidy for battery manufacturing credits.
Right.
I think that 3 billion will come back to them real quick.
Yeah, they will get a good discount there. Well, that's it. Yeah, that's the show.
Outro music.